everyone has a story, and I feel like every story will help and every story will heal. So then just keep doing that. Put up a mood board, whatever it is that your next dreams and goals or whatever it is, it's gonna happen to you, Dean.
Yes.
I mean, I think you need to write a book of all your stories.
Oh my God. Can I tell you, that was one of the conversations that came out of the girl group that we had during the pandemic. And I had even spoken to Sunrise's publicist, and and what I notice about myself is that I'll start something, I'll initiate it, and it's just like one of those things that sit in the back of the bookcase type of thing. So it's one of my things that I need to work on, to kind of seeing what I start to finish. Even if I don't like it, even if I don't feel that it's something that I want to do anymore, just finish it.
Yeah.
Just finish it. So
just finish it.
It's one of my things, putting my
I know. As you were talking, all I saw was, like, I'm like Sunrise, where I'll talk to people and then something will click and I'm like, listen, you need to do that. And like whatever, something special, whatever gifts that they have, I'll see it as well. And I'm like, so as you're speaking, I was like, you need to write your book. Just like you said, like after your conversation with Sunrise, you started writing things down, the timeline. So I think you need to continue that. And I like to give myself deadlines. So I gave myself a deadline with Sunrise, and I love my birthdays. So my birthdays to me is, listen, I was born this day and there's a reason why I'm here. So I always like to, do something big for my birthday. So I gave myself a deadline with Sunrise on the podcast that I would do my coffee table book, finish it, launch it, throw a party, Art and Hustle style, on my birthday, March 31st. So you need to mark that on your calendar.
Yay!
Friday, March 31st, I'm going to throw a big
2023?
2023. So I got 3 months. 3 months.
No
deadline.
Impossibilities here. No impossibilities.
No, exactly. So whenever your birthday is, when's your birthday?
August 11th.
All right, so August 11th.
That's it. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing, Linda.
That's what we're doing. August 11th.
Okay. I'm gonna put it in.
Put it in. August 11th.
August 11th. And so August 11th then is supposed to be my launch for this book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I'm launching mine in 3 months. I haven't fully. It's in my walls. It's in my calendar of my phone. It's in my Google Docs. So it was funny. Like even when I did my art show, I literally launched my art show in like 1 week. So I'm like, that's what I mean. Like I'm crazy. I mean, you're a Leo and a Tiger, so I know you can do this. I know you can do this.
I have all the fire in me, girl.
Yeah, this is why we're meeting. This is why we're meeting, and I'm gonna, light a fire under your ass. And
yes, please. I need you, Linda. I do.
We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this every week.
Okay, so I've just put in on August 11th that this launch is gonna happen, and yours is March 31st. Yes.
Mine's March 31st, and we're finally getting back to me. My art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So to me, art is in everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So Art and Hustle to me is the art of living and art of it and everything.
I hope that you've cut that piece right there and make it your intro and your outro, because that was dope.
How are you? It's so good to see you.
See you. Good morning on this Wednesday, cold winter.
Hello. It is brick out there.
It's cold. It is cold. So, So welcome to the Art and Hustle Gallery of Conversations. I'm excited for you to be here today, Tam. And let's tell all the people we just met on Sunday at this beautiful Oprah-inspired Sunrises brunch.
God. It was just so amazing. I felt there were new faces, but souls knew each other
Yes.
from
Yes.
before. Is
Yes.
how it wasn't new, and overall it was just so refreshing.
Yes.
You know, to be in a place of greatness. You know, and that's what exuded from everybody that I spoke with, even those who I didn't have the opportunity to speak with. It was just like authentic and something to, you know, really have you reflect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was so blessed to have been there, to have been invited by Sunrise and to make the connections that were made, namely you, which was amazing, right? And since then, I've just kind of been floating and thinking about ideas and what's next, and you know, just trying to be more clear with the direction we're going in.
I sit in my garage, and so my garage is my podcast, and it's like cold in here.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, oh my God. So I had the heater next to me, but then I'm like, oh my God, it's blowing in my ear. So I was like, I need to like turn it off. But yeah, let's tell people. So I'm super excited to have you here. You saw the podcast that I just did with Sunrise, which we had spoken on Sunday, where that was a huge moment for me, because for me to be able to come on a year later, so now I'm hitting my 100th podcast that I'm going to air out. So 100 podcasts, and that was honestly like a full circle moment for me, because for me to come on, tell my story and not burst into tears like I tell people, it's a huge feat, because as we know, like it's really difficult to talk about the past without, you know, like I'm starting to well up here, to just not burst out in tears, you know?
Yeah, totally. I saw the podcast on Friday, and I like to watch all of Sunrise's podcasts. I always get a nugget from it where it just leads me into reflection mode, you know?
Yeah.
And I shared with Sunrise, I said, you know, I've watched all of your podcasts and they've all been awesome, but this one, it really hit home for me.
Yeah.
And because we share similar experiences. As a child, I was also sexually molested by a family member, my husband. And, you know, it's funny to hear you say that it's difficult for you to speak about it without bursting into tears. And for me, it was more of I have to be matter of fact.
Yeah.
So for the few that I did share it with, you know, don't get me wrong, there would be moments where, you know, it would be that emotional. But I think even telling the story, it just became, if I tell it, let me just tell it and not allow it to affect me anymore. So there was still a shutdown that was happening within me.
Yeah.
Even when I shared the story.
Yeah. I think when I reconnected with Sunrise, I had a flashback where I did remember that I had told her, and I asked her, like, was she, like, how was I as a child? And I think she told me, like, when I would talk about it, I think I was very matter of fact of like, okay, this is what happened. And I was telling her, like, you disconnect from your body, your mind and your body disconnect. So that's why those emotions don't fully come out. And I had mentioned that for the past 2 years, all I've been doing is crying. All I've been doing is crying during this like COVID reset thing. And I feel like I had to feel and be depressed and heartbroken and mourn and grieve that childhood that I lost.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I have this best friend, and like she knows all, and vice versa. And you know, when I would speak with her about it, and I'm speaking to her about it, it's just like I I would be taken aback because she would burst out in tears.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
seeing her emotions would then trigger my emotions. It was kind of like a mirror effect where I was reminded, oh, this is the part where you're supposed to be emotional,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, again, as you stated, that disconnect is so fierce,
Yes,
you
hugely,
know?
because it's a fight or flight survival mode, because that's what we had to do. We had to create that mask and that armor for us to survive in this kind of world where that stuff happened, and you have to like put it away, bury it, and not think about it. And then until we face with people who touch us in our soul a certain way and
Yeah, yeah,
connect with us, that's when we're like, oh my God, like, yes, that's I have a moment to feel safe
yeah,
to feel it.
yeah. And, safety, like that's how I was wired. I had to make sure that in every situation, in every conversation, in every room that I walked in, every relationship that I had, that I controlled my safety.
Mm-hmm.
It was my
Control. Yeah.
responsibility,
Yeah.
right? And so what does that
What this process has really, really helped me. So I was telling you, like, listen, it's podcast therapy for me. So I
mean?
am all for like chatting on these podcasts and going through these things with you, because
Yeah,
after 100 podcasts, it's literally opened my eyes to really me. Like, it's given me confidence. It's given me a different perspective of liking myself and seeing myself differently, because I have to like look at myself every single time I have to edit it. I have to hear myself talk. And like, I'm a super introverted person. So someone who's gone through like the sexual abuse and trauma and mental like manipulation and gaslighting and narcissism, like he was the gamut ray of it. He was an alcoholic. He was probably like psychopathic, like all of it. So going through that as a child, like you're just so messed up in the head. So all of this podcast therapy and then seeing myself like an out of body experience, seeing myself on TV has been so therapeutic, because you're looking at yourself in a different point of view, because you never really, you're living on fight or flight constantly. So you're not even like listening to yourself. You're not seeing yourself. You're not hearing yourself. You're just doing all the motions of life. So for you to stop and look at yourself on TV and listen to the words you're saying, eventually you get to a point where you're like, wow, that was a good point. Oh, I like what I just said. Or you start laughing the same time that the video is going off, and you're like,
right.
wow. So after like, I mean, the first few that you see on TV, you're like, oh, I don't really like it. Oh, I need to fix my lighting. Oh, I need to do this. But after a while, you get into a rhythm of it, and you get into the consistency of it, where I actually come on the podcast and I don't even have my questions. I just love the flow of
Yeah,
these conversations, that I don't have to be so worried about, oh my God, I need to do the intro. I need to make sure I do this. I need to push sure I do that. Now it's all about the flow for me. So if I'm having a good conversation with someone, I'm perfectly okay with it, because there's a purpose to these conversations, and there will always be nuggets and tips and tricks that we can give out, because every story will help and every story will heal. So I'm all about giving out, helping people one story at a time. And doing these consistently will really help, because you'll just love the process. You'll love hearing your voice. You'll love the conversations. And also, like Sunrise said, like every time you talk about it, you're giving it less power. So after 100 podcasts, I've given it finally less power. It doesn't mean like when I watched a podcast I did with Sunrise, I bursted into tears. I totally did. But it doesn't have the same effect as it did before, because you just keep talking about it, and then you'll find like different revelations about it, different like, avenues to think. And also I realized like every time something triggers you, it's a lesson. It's giving you an aha moment and a light to be like, if this triggers you, that's something you need to go into it deeper. What was it connected to as a child that made you feel that way? Because everything comes from childhood.
absolutely.
Everything is everyone and every event. If you're upset by it, it's a reflection of something that happened to you as a child. So how did you feel about it? What was it? Is it really that thing that got you upset? Or was it, when somebody hurt you and hurt your feelings, and someone, attacked you and made you not feel safe?
That's right.
You know what I mean?
hurt me.
Yeah, because like if your home is not safe and the people around you that's supposed to protect you do not protect you, as a child, like, and then growing up, like what like I'm just learning boundaries. I'm learning about love. I'm learning about like myself. I'm learning to let my guard. Like, I feel like I'm like, ever since, like I told you, like ever since my mom had passed away in 2013, is her death is my rebirth. So like, to me, like I'm a child learning about everything all over again.
During my spiritual journey, in 2017 is when everything kind of hit for me.
Yeah.
And I started to sort out different texts and just, videos of motivational speakers and things of that sort. And I thought, I did a podcast with Sunrise too. Mm-hmm. And so I was feeling all of these good feelings and, just out of body experience, not even recognizing that I had it in me to experience those types of feelings. Mm-hmm. And so I felt confident, and I was back on Instagram and Facebook. And for those years, I was posting a lot of motivational quotes and that kind of broke into that pandemic time as well. Mm-hmm. But then I started feeling myself sinking again. And, when I first emerged, it was all about, this is what helps me. Who gives a heck what everybody else thinks? If it resonates with folks, then cool. But then I realized that I started overthinking it and it wasn't feeling as good anymore. And so I said, you know what? You've been in this space before. If it doesn't feel good, it's happening for a reason. So check in, and I kind of pulled back again, just so that I could get clear on what it was that I was feeling. And what I learned was it's no destination. You're gonna have those up and down moments. Yeah. And when it's time for you to kind of pull away, that's okay too, because we evolve and evaluations have to take place, and just so that you can get yourself, I guess, calibrated.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And so this is kind of the space that I'm in now. I feel like I know a lot of things from theory, right? The application is a beat. Putting it into practice. And I think that I'm looking for the consistency of that as I move forward. Yeah. Allowing those difficult moments, instead of me curling into my ball, to be able to say, okay, this is your opportunity to heal. It's in these moments of challenges that you can talk yourself through, because it's the self-talk that makes you feel like you're stuck and there's no way out. And the words that you're hearing in your head are the truth. And they're so far from the truth.
Yeah. And exactly. And that's what this process has really, really helped me. So I was telling you, like, listen, it's podcast therapy for me. So I am all for like chatting on these podcasts and going through these things with you, because after 100 podcasts, it's literally opened my eyes to really me. Like, it's given me confidence. It's given me a different perspective of liking myself and seeing myself differently, because I have to like look at myself every single time I have to edit it. I have to hear myself talk. And like, I'm a super introverted person. So someone who's gone through like the sexual abuse and trauma and mental like manipulation and gaslighting and narcissism, like he was the gamut array of it. He was an alcoholic. He was probably like psychopathic, like all of it. So going through that as a child, like you're just so messed up in the head. So all of this podcast therapy and then seeing myself like an out-of-body experience, seeing myself on TV has been so therapeutic, because you're looking at yourself in a different point of view, because you never really, you're living on fight or flight constantly. So you're not even like listening to yourself. You're not seeing yourself. You're not hearing yourself. You're just doing all the motions of life. So for you to stop and look at yourself on TV and listen to the words you're saying, eventually you get to a point where you're like, wow, that was a good point. Oh, I like what I just said. Or you start laughing the same time that the video is going off. And you're like, wow, So after like, I mean, the first few that you see on TV, you're like, oh, I don't really like it. Oh, I need to fix my lighting. Oh, I need to do this. But after a while, you get into a rhythm of it, and you get into the consistency of it, where I actually come on the podcast and I don't even have my questions. I just love the flow of these conversations, that I don't have to be so worried about, oh my God, I need to do the intro. I need to make sure I do this. I need to make sure I do that. Now it's all about the flow for me. So if I'm having a good conversation with someone, I'm perfectly okay with it, because there's a purpose to these conversations, and there will always be nuggets and tips and tricks that we can give out, because every story will help and every story will heal. So I'm all about giving out, helping people one story at a time. And doing these consistently will really help, because you'll just love the process. You'll love hearing your voice. You'll love the conversations. And also, like Sunrise said, like every time you talk about it, you're giving it less power. So after 100 podcasts, I've given it finally less power. But doesn't mean like when I watched a podcast I did with Sunrise, I bursted into tears. I totally did. But it doesn't have the same effect as it did before, because you just keep talking about it, and then you'll find like different revelations about it, different like, avenues to think. And also I realized, like, every time something triggers you, it's a lesson. It's giving you an aha moment and a light to be like, if this triggers you, that's something you need to go into it deeper. What was it connected to as a child that made you feel that way? Because everything comes from childhood.
Absolutely.
Everything is everyone and every event. If you're upset by it, it's a reflection of something that happened to you as a child. Absolutely. So how did you feel about it? What was it? Is it really that thing that got you upset? Or was it, when somebody hurt you and hurt your feelings, and someone, attacked you and made you not feel safe?
That's the triggers that happen. They're essentially blessings. That person that's not treating you right or speaking to you in the way that you think that they should. It's not about them. It's how you're perceiving that, right? And how you're seeing yourself in that interaction. And so I make it a point to be intentional. Instead of focusing on the trigger, to focus on what it is it's bringing out of me. If I'm being triggered, if something is kind of just gnawing at me, what is it that's coming out of me? Is it frustration? Is it anger? And then once I'm able to name whatever that is, it's just like I need to zero in on what it is that makes me feel that way, as you just stated.
And then sit with it.
And sit with it. And sit with it, because sometimes the answers don't come right away.
No, they don't. They take a while.
No, they take a little bit.
They take some time.
During the pandemic, I also had a therapist, and she was really, really helpful. She would just tell me to sit with it. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean sit with it? Like I had to literally learn how to just feel the discomfort without responding to it. I couldn't even imagine, because I'm so flip at the lip sometimes, especially if it's something with my partner, or if it's my children, it's just response mode, and at that point, it just creates another layer of a situation that doesn't need to exist.
Totally.
Right. So I had to learn how to kind of be still and not respond, because my responses were fear responses.
Right? Totally. It's like fear, and it's like, oh, you disrespected me, so let me tell you how I feel. Or it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck does that mean?
Right.
Like me, I am so quick. I'm an Aries and a dragon, and I am full force. Like, what the fuck does that mean? What did you mean by that?
Right. Well, girl,
like negative, like
Leo and Tiger.
Oh, see, this is why we instantly like got along. We feel the fire between us, right? It's like, what the fuck? Like,
what is really happening here? And again, I need to control the situation, because even if you're my child, you're not going to hurt me. You're not going to hurt me. Like, I need to make this clear to you, that type of thing. And just kind of learning how to reconstruct my conversations, how to be more intentional about saying, I'm hurt, without coming with the fire. Like, you hurt, now you're going to feel it. Just kind of learning how to decompress before I go 1,000% in and hurt somebody else's feelings and have to go through that whole process of I didn't mean it, and this is just what it is for me right now, and it's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable behavior, even though I know my story and I know where it's coming from, but everybody on the outside, they don't deserve that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's emotional development, emotional learning, and it's learning to stop for a second. But it's really hard to learn those things when you've been going through this whole process of, like constantly being attacked as a child. Like you don't learn those. So like I'm digging so deep into, like, I use myself as like, a total like what do you call it? If a scientist is like dissecting things, or a psychologist is, like I'm just dissecting everything and all the things that I do, because I found it interesting because, going through I always tell my friends, like, going through such an experience, technically, I beat the odds. I could have been, a stripper, an alcoholic, a drug addict. I could have been living on the streets, So the fact that I didn't end up that way, to me, is fascinating on its own. So I'm always like, how did that happen? And how does somebody who had a perfect childhood, got everything, all the love and affection from their parents, turned out to be an alcoholic or a drug addict? But me, I didn't have that, and I didn't turn out that way. So how does that happen? So like the scientists and the psychologists and like all of that in me, like I'm always like dissecting all of it. To me, it's fascinating to find out and like look at it.
It really is. And I think that I connected with you when you said that throughout this whole experience, you always had hope.
Yeah.
Right? There was always, and that too greatly resonated with me, because I would, even as a child, I was always seeking. I was 15 years old in high school, going to the library, looking through, having to know the Dewey Decimal System and looking things up on traumatic experiences for children during their childhood. Absolutely.
At what age?
15. And I remember that I had written a piece in my first year of college, stand this, and maybe it was a part of the control that I had to, because I needed some answers. And my faith, I always knew, I was like, there is no way that I'm here just to have this story. It cannot be here.
It cannot.
And I always had it in the back of my mind, like, I didn't feel that I had the best childhood. I didn't feel that, I had the best connections with my mom. I didn't feel that I had the greatest relationships, right? But there was always that anchor in knowing that one day, like just one day, God, I know that I'll be able to breathe freely, and whenever that is, I'm here for it. I'm here. Course, struggle through the entire process of this experience, but that little bit, just that little bit is, I feel, what carried me through.
By the way, guys, I just want to interrupt my own video here and let you know that if you can really help me out and like, subscribe, comment, because that really helps our algorithm and push to people that really need to hear this. Yeah, exactly. And that's what carried me through, where I was like, this can't be my life. Like, there has to be something more for me. Like, even going through all of that, and even when I really hit rock bottom during COVID, where I was super depressed, and I've never been a type of person to be fully depressed. And I never really got to a point where I actually started losing hope for a second. And when I started losing hope, I was like, oh, wow, something's really, really wrong with me at this point. And I never felt like that. So for me to feel like that, at least when I got out of it, now I have more empathy for somebody who is really, really depressed, because I never understood how somebody couldn't just get your shit together, just bulldoze it and get through life and just do it. Just change your mindset and go. So I've always been like full force bulldozing my goals, my career goals, life, everything I had to do, because that's what I had to do as a child. So I never was able to sit in any sort of depression until COVID. And that gave me a minute to empathize and sit with those emotions and go through it. And thank God I came out of it, because now I have my hope back. But to lose a little bit of that hope is really, really hard even go through life. Like, that's just insane.
I was a very sad child. I was always just very sad and very quiet and, you know, always in the corner just watching everything else, you know, because I didn't know how to blend. I didn't, you know, like it was just so awkward. I was very, very awkward as a kid, you know, and it comes up in my adulthood as well, where, you know, my heart will start racing if I'm about to walk into a meeting, or if it's my turn to share my opinion, you know, in all of those settings, it was just second guessing myself, not having that confidence in my own voice. You know, a part of my story too that kind of layered, added, had an additional layer to it was the fact that I did share my story with my parent, with my mom, you know, and I think because because of the culture that I'm in, it was more of a hush hush. Everything has to be swept under the rug because it was an embarrassment for her. And I resented my mom for a long time. In fact, I think that there's still some resentment that lingers, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
You know, and because I was thinking like, how do you choose your child over your sister is how I was rationalizing it. You know, how do you sacrifice a young girl because of your shame and unwillingness to, and it's not like it happened to you, however, this is cyclical. So my mom experienced it too, you know, it's more accepted and this is just what happens and you move forward. So
really?
Yeah, having that
that's how she thought?
Yeah. Yes. This is just what happens. This is just what happens. So we're not even going to talk about, because I haven't even scratched that surface, for me and my mom to have a conversation about what it was like
Wow.
for her as a child. And my mom is gorgeous, you know. You know, she was always hit on by older men and, you know, her men her age and things of that sort. But this is something that she had to deal with. Um, so trying to look at it through her lens, it's like, I'm sure that she felt for me, but it was like, deal with it. You know, this is just what happens.
Oh my God. Oh my God. So there was no like even support or empathy or sadness or sorrow, any sort of emotion that was attached to it for support for you as a child.
Yeah, there wasn't. And I think that part is what hurt me.
Yes. That's huge. That's a huge thing. You have to like process that, think about that, and sit with that, how effed up that is. And the interesting opposite of that is that I never was able to be mad at my mom until COVID, till recently, where I finally got to a point where I was upset because everyone was always like, Linda, did you even look at why you're not mad at your mom? And I was like, well, I always thought that she was a victim too. And, you know, she was beaten and abused and all of it, and mentally tortured as well as all of us. So I always thought that she was like one of us. So I never was mad at her until recently. I think during COVID, I was watching on Netflix Made. And another one was like Killer Sally, and just two things that those people said in the movie, or moments in the movie, where I just bursted into tears. Like one of them, the daughter was trying to help the mom get out of an abusive relationship, and she's like, listen, let's move, let's go, like I'll pick you up at this time, let's go. So the day that, you know, her mom said, okay, you know, I'm ready, let's go. The day that she went to go pick her up, the mother says, no, I'm going to stay. And then just a vision of the daughter driving away from the mother and the mother staying and choosing that. And then there was another one in Killer Sally where the daughter had said, like, I think she said, like, you know, the fact that she chose her stepfather who was being abusive, like, she's like, this is not even my father, why are you choosing this man? Like, you're choosing him over your children. And that's what hit. Well, I was like, that's what's fucked up about it. You're choosing your husband over your children who are helpless.
Right. And, you know, in a child's mind, because in my adulthood, that was my processing. I was using my child mind and my childhood experiences to process present day events.
Yeah, because we're
Right?
stuck.
And
We're
how
stuck there.
unhealthy is that?
Mhm.
We're stuck. There are moments where I say to myself, like, I'm not supposed to make any good out of this. This is not good. This is not good. Right? And I think those are the moments where I'm just kind of in self-pity and just like, this is just so fucked up. Like, why? Why? And and then when I'm able to pull myself out, I'm like, for that man to have done that, what was his experiences?
Yes,
What
that's
was
what I
his
wondered too. Yeah,
childhood? You
yeah.
know, what
Mhm.
was he exposed to? Why did he feel the need to be a vulture to
Yeah,
someone who is just so vulnerable? Why?
yeah,
Those
yeah,
questions came up. And I think in asking those questions, not to give him a pass, right? It was just
yeah,
for me to gain
yeah,
some understanding and for me to detach myself in the story as though I was a part of the making of this horrible experience.
yeah,
Because as when it first happened, and I was like, what did I do? Maybe I said something to invite this type of behavior, not realizing that it has nothing to do with me.
yeah,
And just the different phases that you have to go through and the difficult questions that you have to ask yourself and learning how to forgive. I didn't know what forgiveness looked like because I felt like if I was forgiving, I was saying that it was what happened was okay, and it has nothing. I learned, of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
that it has nothing to do with that. It's just kind of releasing that energy that has that hold on you. Really, a lot to process as a child,
yeah.
and I just feel for the child me.
Yes, yes. You have to grieve and mourn that child and all of those events and just feel it and give yourself grace. Give yourself a moment and it's okay. And it's all okay that you feel
Okay,
all those things.
what I know that I gained from this experience, because there was a time where I'm like, what can you, like, how can this make you grow any better? But one of the things that I gained and that I love about myself is that I am so empathetic towards people.
Yes. Yeah.
I can see somebody and be like, oh man, what's wrong with her?
Yeah.
I wish that I can help. What could be so bad that you're on a corner by yourself crying in the cold?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so I'm always empathizing. I'm always thinking about what is the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a backstory. Like, people show up the way that they show up, not because they just want to be mean or they just want to be rude. Like, there's a backstory there.
Yeah.
And so trying to connect, because you'll see me or I'll see you, and the first thing that comes to mind is not that you were abused as a child. I'm seeing this magnificent, this beautiful woman across from me, and that's just what, the
Mhm.
surface, what your story is for that person.
Yeah.
But what is really happening? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what is really happening? And so that's what it just made me look at people differently. Because you don't know
Yeah.
until you have a conversation, or you hear the story through
Mm-hmm.
some other through some other outlet. But it's just been a journey, and every day I learn something new about myself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's revealing, like, oh girl, you need to get with yourself and figure that out.
Uh-huh.
But then there are other parts, and that are just like, you're really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You're really
Mm-hmm.
amazing, and I'm at a point where I want to highlight more of the amazing stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. And I watched like I went through YouTube University, and for 2 years, all I kept watching was these positive like podcasts that would have these like scientists to psychologists to motivational speakers to Anthony Robbins to Jay Shetty to Lewis Howes, all of these podcasts, like my top 10 podcasts, of course Oprah and Ellen and all of them. And each person and each guest that would come on, I would just absorb that knowledge, and eventually you learn like our past gave us, at this point, like I look at it as like a positive thing where now it's our superpower. we have a superpower to be empathetic. We have a superpower to be compassionate. And that's why we can talk to so many people and read a room instantly, because we have that spidey sense.
Yes.
We just walk into a room and you just already feel the energy, because that's what you had to do as a child, is to sit there and watch everybody and feel everyone's energy, because you don't want to talk as a child, because your voice is not fully developed of speaking in your truth. You're just hiding it. So now I can walk into any room and feel everyone's energy, you know, and you can be like, okay, that person has good energy, that person doesn't. All right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And just being able to connect with that discomfort, like, oh, I know what she's feeling. Like I can sense it, like, and then just kind of taking on that feeling, because I am super shy. I never allowed myself to develop my voice, in fear that I'll just, would be shot down. And so what did I do? I hid behind amazing people.
Yes. That's exactly what I said too. That's exactly what I said on the podcast. Like, I was always hiding behind, being a vice president, doing this. Like, I never wanted to be the front person. I never loved my voice or my points of view. So all of my friends, and majority of them, are very outspoken leaders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I was a group of NYC in college. I was my boyfriend then, who became my husband, who is now my divorced. Now we're divorced.
Now you guys are divorced. Oh.
Now we're divorced. He was super popular, so I was always his girlfriend. You know what I mean? And even within my family, it was just like I was always the second. I was always the backdrop. And not because people forced me there, because that's how I showed up.
Yeah.
So it's just like when you have a role for yourself, they're going to honor that. They're going to say, okay, she wants to be in the backdrop, and as a backdrop, that's how you're going to be dealt with. And for me, it was just like, why can't I be seen, or why can't I be, or why can't I, and it had nothing to do with anybody else. It's because of how I chose to show up. Yeah. And so, if I want folks to see me differently, then I have to show up differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And saying showing up differently, I mean, like, showing up in my whole self.
Yeah.
Giving folks
mind, body, and soul.
Mind, body, and soul. This is who I am. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And if you leave it, that's okay. If you take it, then let's do this together, type thing.
Yeah, exactly.
God didn't design us to be liked by everyone. We're not meant to resonate with everything.
And that's a hard thing to, like, really accept too, because I'm just learning about haters.
Listen, and they are real, girl. They are real.
Because I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm a recovering, nice person, good girl. Like, I'm recovering from all of that. So to have haters is a new thing for me, because I've always been like, go with the flow, and like be agreeable, and like I want everybody to like me. No, now I got to get to the point where it's like, if you don't like me, I'm sorry, but it's on you. The fact that you don't like me is a reflection of whatever points of view that you have for yourself. Has nothing to do with me. So I'm trying to learn that more now in my space.
Yeah. Same. It's just like, there's a few people in the past where you just try to question, like, what is it that, I may have said that kind of just repels this person from me? And I'm at a point where it's not my job to figure that out. It's not my business to know
it's not my business.
You feel about me.
Yeah.
Your reflection of me has nothing to do with the Tam that sits before you, and just kind of saying that to myself regularly, like, it's okay. You're not meant for everybody. We're not designed to be for everyone.
Yeah.
It's a hard pill to swallow, because me too. I was also a people pleaser, and I have to say the right things. And if it's not perfection, then keep your mouth shut. If like that type of thing. And now it's just like, bleh, take it.
Exactly. So like, that's why like being on a podcast and putting myself on TV, putting myself on the internet, putting the good, the bad hair days, the bad makeup days, where I'm looking at myself like, oh man, like, why did I not fix my makeup? And I'm not going to take it down. I'm like, that was a bad day. I'm sorry. It wasn't perfect. I just have to accept it and move along.
And
but
just be okay.
Yeah, and just be okay with it. I'm getting to a point where it's like, it's all out there. You either love me or hate me. I'm sorry. I'm not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And, same thing with my art. When I finally put my art out into the internet, there's going to be haters. There's going to be somebody who has something negative to say. Not everyone's going to like it. If you resonate with it, beautifully, I love it.
And gorgeous, I have to say, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. But that's super hard. Like the first step is putting my name out there, putting my art out there to be critiqued.
A time where critique was a difficult thing for me as well, because I felt like you were telling me that I wasn't good enough.
Yes, it's always that I'm not good enough, or being shamed, or being embarrassed.
Yes, it's the embarrassment, I think, that holds me.
Yeah.
It holds me longer in that space than I need to be. And it's just like, what are you embarrassed about? And I think it speaks to the part of me that feels that everything has to be perfect, that feels that if you don't like me, then there's something wrong with me.
Yeah. It's not, when you're embarrassed, it's just like, okay, what did I do? And why am I not good enough? And why are you hurting me? So it all goes back to childhood. It all goes back to that child at whatever age that you're stuck in, that needs to be heard, that needs to be seen.
Yes.
And we just want to be seen.
We just want to be seen. And so I get it when you say, you're coming up to your 100th episode, and just having that journey with seeing your face over and over again, listening to your voice. I did the podcast with Sunrise some months ago, and when she asked me, I froze. Like I saw the email, or was it in a text or something? And I was like,
you're like, oh my God,
I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And then in my head, I was like, no, that's a voice. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to that voice. And I was like, just say yes. Just text yes and deal with everything later. So I was like, yay, I'll do it. But even after I put the phone down, and I was like, what did I just...
You're probably having like an anxiety panic attack.
Oh, it was ridiculous. I was like, oh my God, I can't do it. So what happened was, the first time that we were supposed to meet, it didn't happen. So I'm like, oh no, I have to go through these emotions all over again. But it was good, and it was a release. And I spoke about my spirituality and how my grandmother was a great mentor, I could say, for kind of setting up the foundation for our family. This is where my hope comes from, from a young age. Spirituality was always there. It just looked different because of the religion that I was in, and how it looked in my house, and me having to kind of venture off to find out what it was for me, because I learned that it needed to be personal. Sharing that, it was just an eye opener. After I had the podcast, I started kind of created a timeline. When did my grandmother die?
Oh, see, that's really good.
What happened during those times, because I realized when she passed, or when she was passing, it was when I was going through my divorce, and I shared that on the podcast, but then I started putting the details to it. And I was like, wow, this is where she inserted herself in my space, even though she wasn't doing well, but it was her teachings that was kind of, pushing me through this difficult time. And the breakdown that I was having, I was like, oh my God, look at this imagery here. I started breaking down during the time that she was breaking down, like she was that foundation for me. And for everything just to be happening simultaneously, it wasn't until after the podcast, I was like, oh my God, nothing happens in randomness. Everything is totally, totally connected. And I was just able to see the connections a little more clear, because I was able to put a voice to the experience and hear it.
Yeah. See, it's hearing it.
It's hearing it.
Hearing it, yeah.
It's hearing it. And after speaking with you on Sunday, it made me feel like you need to go back to the podcast that you had with Sunrise and listen to it more. And now start kind of picking through it and looking at my nuances. My girlfriend shared that she watched a video of a professional speaker, and he was saying, first, turn down the volume and just kind of look at your gestures.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the audio, listen to the words and the actual words that you choose.
Mm-hmm.
What is your vocabulary, and where do you place emphasis and things of that sort? Because even in your body language, that tells a totally different story.
Yeah. Yep.
So just doing these little pieces, because I'm not the person that can take down a whole apple. Like, I have to take it in morsels. I have to have a bite here and a bite here and a chunk here, because I become overwhelmed and kind of just want to put it to the side, and I'll put it down and I won't go back to it until there's something else that kind of, propels me to go in that direction. But just reminding myself, like, this is not a race, this is Tam's time to figure it out. To listen to what my heart is saying, to pay attention to the innate intuitiveness that we have within ourselves and connect with that. Because, as we talked about, when you disconnect your mind from your body, it's so much that's lost.
All of it. Yeah, it's so much. All of it's lost.
You don't trust yourself. This is why I'm always having a hard time making decisions.
That's why we keep running things through our head, because our mind and body and soul are not fully connected. So had it was connected as a child, we will be able to trust those instincts, that intuition and all of that quicker. So for me, like, I realized, like, why do I keep doing these cycles of like toxic things? It's because I'm not connected.
That's right. That's right. And our body lets us know, like, hey, kid, you're going to keep feeling this stuff, and it's going to keep recycling.
Yeah. It's totally going to give you sign. I'm going to send you a couple of podcasts that I love. One guy, I think his name is Gaber Mate or something like that. He's a doctor, but he breaks it down so well. And he had a podcast about a book that he had written. And he was like, listen, your body is always going to give you signs. So the fact that if your mind and body are not connected, your body's going to give you little signals. It's going to be a disease. It's going to be anxiety. It's going to be a skin disorder. It's going to be allergies. It's going to give you little signs like, hello, pay attention. You're not following your gut. And I'm going to tell you that I'm not happy. Like, your gut turned me off. It's going to tell you, like, you're not listening to me. You're doing something you shouldn't be doing. You're placating somebody. You're saying yes to somebody that you don't want to say yes to. You're going to this event that you don't want to go to. You're in a relationship that you shouldn't be. Your body's going to do all of that.
All of it. And you know what it is? It's that self-betrayal.
Yes. Self-betrayal. Yep.
It's that self-betrayal, and it sends us those red flags, like, you're feeling this way. You better pay attention to it, because these are that will lead you to your healing. These are the signals that will lead you to your healing.
Yep.
And so I'm an overthinker, and so much better now, though. Sometimes I'll be like, stop, and I'll put on some music, or I'll do something to kind of
get out of your head,
to get out of my head. And it's just always, what do I need to do? What do I need to do? What do I need to do? And it's not always in the doing. Sometimes I just have to allow myself to be. Don't get me wrong. There's a time, because work without faith without work is dead. There has to be something. You have to put the pedal to the metal at some point, because you're not going to get what you're looking for by sitting still all your life, right? But at the same time, allowing not my fear to guide me, but my faith to guide me, and stepping out on that faith, expecting exactly what it is that I'm putting out. That in itself it can be a trauma, because you're not accustomed to putting yourself out there. But I feel like the healing is it's the mess.
Yeah, it is the mess.
So it has to come up.
Yeah, totally. Like I had an art show that was called Controlled Chaos. It's the beautiful mess. It's the oxymoron of the two juxtapositions of it. I find super interesting. And I told Sunrise this crayon story too. And it's more about being present and not being perfect. And the crayon story was when I was a child, my sister would color beautiful crayon books and like outlined it so nicely, beautifully outlined first, inside the lines, and then color it in, so her book just looked beautiful. And I would try to do it and I would mess up, and I would do it again and I'll mess up, and I would always tear it off and try over because I wanted to be perfect like hers. So I would tear it off, try again, and I would constantly beg my mom for some money to the stationery store, buy a new one, because I don't want the one I just tore up because it's not perfect anymore. So I will always constantly want to try to buy another one. And as a child, I actually sat there for a second and realized I can't keep doing this. I can't keep throwing it out and asking for another one because she's not going to keep giving me money to buy another one.
Right.
And I actually had to like overcome that as a child of like, okay, it just doesn't have to be perfect. I'll just turn the page and just start again, be like, it's okay. Like it doesn't have to be perfect. And that actually has fully translated more as an adult, where now I just love the process of it more. Like to me, like I'm really accepting more of like, it's okay if like whatever process I'm in, that's where I need to be. And if the art is starting out this way and it's not perfect, it's okay. I'm just going to white it all out, start over, or add another piece of paper, tear up collages of things and putting it together. So I'm loving like the mess of it, the beauty of it. And, that's how life is.
Yeah. And I mean, even the silver lining, the fact that you experienced tearing it up, and starting over, like that, I'm sure added to your fulfillment when you're creating your art.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you got to tear it down and,
you have to.
I don't want to use this whole thing. Let me take a piece from it, and build from that. And all of that, it's okay. The messiness is so important because it shows us the things that we need to work on.
Yeah, and life is not perfect. You need shit to grow some flowers and vegetables. So you need that. You need some manure. You need to have, all of that dirt and the shit and be buried. The seed has to get buried. And, you have to sit there in that moment to feel all those things and eventually come out and blossom into a beautiful flower, butterfly, cocoon, all of it.
Whatever. That's right.
And it's okay. Like the struggles that we went through make us, all the shit that we went through has made us into beautiful, empathetic, women.
Absolutely. I mean, things that happen in the darkness, it has to happen in the darkness so that we can be awed by the emergence of whatever it evolves into.
And look, you're on the second podcast.
Here I am.
We're gonna do more of these, and we're gonna see the light start coming out, and the epiphanies more come out.
Oh my God. It's just like when I walked into the room, I was like, Art and Hustle is in the house.
I love it. I love it. I love it when you came out to you like, oh my God, like so happy to see you. I just watched your podcast and I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. Thank you.
It was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And it just kind of put a battery in my back, and I was like, look at this woman.
I love it. I love it.
She's talking about her 100th episode, like, geez, having similar experiences, it really made me feel like I was, I'm in the right place, I'm in the right place and I can show up.
Yeah.
Even when I show up, even in those moments where it's uncomfortable, it's still a learning about myself.
Yeah.
Because every discomfort it does not stem from the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, what is this about today? What are you feeling today? And another thing that I developed too, because as a child, I was always anxious. I always had anxiety, never had panic attacks.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
It wasn't until the pandemic, I was like, what is happening with my heart right now? Why is it beating 150 beats per minute? Like literally out of my chest, and that experience was just like, okay, what is happening with my body? Seriously. Making me like,
it was a release. Maybe you needed that release, because if you're saying to me that if you had all of these things that happened to you and you would just talk about it with no emotions, your body needs to release it.
Yeah. So I learned that my body was holding on to a lot of things.
Yes.
And I was so caught up in the routine of the way that I did things. It was just like,
Yep.
It's like a track
like a hamster wheel.
Yes, it's a hamster wheel. And the conversations, I'm sure that Sunrise has shared during the pandemic, and when I say we, the college group of us, we banded together and we would meet on Zoom for an hour, to pray, to cry, to share, to release,
that should have been recorded. That's a
It
podcast.
have been,
That would have been a podcast.
It was amazing, the things that came out of it, it was so amazing. And I feel like that too also saved me during the pandemic. It was because of the sister group that we had that led me to say, you need to meet with somebody one-on-one. You need to look into some of these things a little deeper with a different eye, and it was just amazing. We met religiously every week just to come in, and it started out as we would have scriptures and kind of talk about the scriptures, and over the year it just developed into whatever we needed in that moment. And we would have intentions for one thing, and then it would get sidetracked to something else. It was just a place where sister friends could just come together, have a conversation without feeling judged about anything. If I decided to cry and slobber and all of that stuff happened, it was okay because I was in a safe space with people.
Exactly.
And so just having the opportunity to for me especially, to just hear my voice and to hear the experience that I had, that I keep, because the story for me is just within, right?
I don't get it out. You gotta get it out
to know it, but the healing takes place in the conversations.
It does. And sharing it, the conversations, and letting it out, and just talking about it. Like every week I do a podcast with two people that have really like touched my soul. So like one is a mentor that I had, who was my English teacher in high school. So he's a super brilliant professor, Stony Brook, and he's just so amazing. I love his conversations, and I do a weekly one with Sunrise as well. And just having that foundation of those weekly conversations is just so beautiful and healing, because you're just going with the flow. What do we want to chat about today? And each thing that we come on, even if I had an idea, it would just like link to another one and another one and another one,
Right.
Conversations would just expound on its own constantly.
Right. It's something that I definitely admire, because over the years, I learned being brave means that you're doing the thing while you're scared.
Being vulnerable. It's a hard thing to be vulnerable, because if you were vulnerable as a child, like you don't want to be vulnerable as an adult.
That's right. Not if it hurts you.
Yeah.
Not if it hurts you.
Yeah.
Because I know in certain spaces, like vulnerability was revered because, it was taught.
Yeah.
In certain instances, it's a good thing to because vulnerability is actually okay, right? It's when you're hurt, when you're vulnerable, you start to see it as not a superpower.
Yeah.
This is a weakness, and I need to make sure that I'm not vulnerable so that I do not allow anybody in, So because of our experiences, we saw it as the negative, on the negative side.
Yeah, it's to be able to be vulnerable, sit in that space, but also talk speak your truth. So when I speak my truth, and even though I'm sharing something vulnerable with you, I'm still speaking my truth. So there's no wrong in it.
There's not.
There's no wrong in it. And if I make a mistake or I mess up my words, because that's also a fear. Like I was also always fearful speaking, because I felt like I would say something wrong, or I don't sound intelligent, or I'll fumble it up, or I'll stutter, and then I'll just feel embarrassed. It was always like, I'm embarrassed, so I'm just not going to speak, So putting my face on TV all the time and every week, that's a huge thing from a child who's super shy introverted and hiding behind like everybody else.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm super happy that I can inspire you. And like when you watched it, it inspires you, because I said something funny to Sunrise where I'm so vulnerable at this space where anybody who calls me, they're like, Linda, how are you? I'm like, I am depressed. I'm shitty. I am fucked up. I am beautiful. Like I am sad, depressed, heartbroken. So I just tell people like it is, which is funny because normally everyone just kind of covers it up and be like, no, I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's fine. Like, no, I'm going to tell you, no, I'm not going to tell you. And like, I've had a couple friends who I've had conversations with where I tell them, no, I'm terrible. I'll start crying. And one of my girlfriends gifted me a trip out to Seattle during Thanksgiving to be with her family.
Oh.
And I realized a lot of events. So even going there and then going to Sunrise's things, these are normally not things that I would do around the holidays, you know. So these are all firsts that I've done. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm like, the funny thing is that even though I am being vulnerable and telling people that I need their time, I think they needed it more than me. Which was really interesting, where I had that revelation on a podcast with Sunrise. I'm like, you know what? I think she needed it more than me, because the things that she was going through, I don't think she really talks about it, you know? And you need to talk about it and not keep it in. So thank God I was there for her as well, to talk about the things that she's going through. And then going to Sunrise's thing and meeting you as well, right? I think is like perfect, like synchronicity of things.
Seriously. And I have this thing. I'm not good with meeting new people.
No, I'm not either. No, I am not. Do you know how much anxiety I would have to walk into a room completely of new people? Completely. Like seriously. The whole room is all new people for me. So I have huge anxiety of going to these kinds of things.
Yeah, totally.
But it was beautiful, and everybody received me and everybody chatted with me. I've never been into a room where I felt so comfortable with new people.
Absolutely. And for me to even do this with you, you know, like literally my heart is not palpitating. I didn't feel like I needed to put anything on, you know, it's a new space for me.
Yes.
You know, and your energy is amazing, by the way, if I didn't say it before.
Thank you.
Totally comfortable. And, you know, when you don't have 1,001 things running in your head, you can be present, you know, and I'm tearing right now because I'm so happy, you know, I really am. It just makes me feel, it's not often where I feel comfortable in a space. Even if I show up, and everybody at work, you know, they always think that I'm some type of administrator, or why aren't you in leadership? Because I usually present myself and I take on leadership responsibilities. You know, my mentor was an assistant principal of mine that I followed. He got a principalship, and I followed him to another school. I'm in education, obviously. And he was such a hero to me. He never forced me into anything. So with all that said, with me being shy and not liking to talk in front of people and being very, very critical of how I sounded and how I was able to articulate certain words, I didn't feel, and I still don't feel like my vocabulary is extensive. So it kind of limits what I can share. And I'm like, girl, it's through talking that you pick up on vocabulary. Like you don't worry about it. Just tell your story and then figure it out later.
Exactly.
You know, but he allowed me to step up how I wanted to. I was never forced into he allowed my talent to speak for itself.
Because he saw your light.
And I could, you know, I thanked him for this when we parted ways, because it's been like 5 years since I haven't worked with him. But he gave me this, he was so confident that he allowed me to feel like, oh, he thinks okay, then I'll do it, you know? You know, that type of thing. And so I appreciate him so much for that.
He gave you the permission to be you.
He gave me the permission to be me. You know, and I there were a few workshops that I had done in the end because he would ask and I'd be like, McNeil, I'm not ready for this. Like I can't.
Yeah.
And I did the workshops, and when we debriefed about it, he was like, do you know how amazing that was?
Oh my God.
Do you know, like even the teachers would come in after me and be like, okay, what are you going to do in professional development today, Miss Julien?
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, I don't know.
That's why you have to record it and look at yourself.
Oh my
Because you
God.
don't see, because like that's the thing. Like I've done so much stuff in my life, but it's survival mode, so I'm not present. So I don't fully see all the amazing things I did. Just like you, like
Yeah.
you don't realize how amazing you are till you freaking see it.
Yes, it's the
Like
truth. It's
on
the truth.
TV. Yeah.
Even in my current position, folks will come up to me and say, are you the principal? I'm like, far from. She's in that room down there.
What's your position? What's your position now?
I'm a case manager because I work with the adult population, so the roles are a bit different.
Mm-hmm.
But prior to me being a case manager, before I took on this role in the K-12 setting, I was first the math teacher for seventh graders for 5 years, and then the last 10 years I was a dean, if you can imagine.
That's amazing.
And, yeah, I
well,
was a
look
dean.
at you, Dean.
I'm telling you.
Oh, see?
And that part, see, in the beginning, it came really easy for me because I come from a very disciplined home. And so I could bring that forward. But then through the evolution of me deaning, I was like, this stuff is not supposed to be punitive for kids. Like, that's not what I want to make it. And so, I was able to bring in my meditation practice. The students were running into my office, and I'm talking about students that had really some issues. They would run into my office and plant themselves in my seat and say, Miss Julien, I just need to meditate for 5 minutes. I just need to meditate for 5 minutes.
I love it.
And I walked away on top, right? I was like, it's time for me to go because now I'm ready to spread my wings. And I ended up with adult education. And because I was in a different space and because I didn't have my mentor as my safety net, I had to relearn myself all over again, independent of that support that I was accustomed to receiving.
Yeah.
And so I have to tell you, I haven't been doing a bang out job, right?
Listen, it's a process. It's okay because that's what I'm doing now, because I was in the fashion industry from 1999 until I was let go March of 2020. So I did that, that's like 23 years or something, 20-something years. So I was in fashion design for such a long period of time in corporate America, doing the same roles in all these different companies. And eventually when I got let go, and me and my girlfriend were always talking like, we have to get out of this. We have to get out of this. Like, let's do something else on our own. Because we're like true artists of, the essence of who we want to be is just an artist. So I got to a point where I was starting to worry about money. I'm like, what am I going to do? Like, do I go back to corporate America or do I figure something else out? I don't want to go back to corporate America, but a safety net of the money was huge for me because I need safety. I need to know where the money's coming from. And I got bills to pay. Yeah, I got bills to pay. I'm a single mom, 2 kids. So I had to take a leap of faith. And I started an Airbnb business that gave me the freedom to have my time and to be with my kids and then figure it out again.
Nice.
So I had to take a leap. Like the same week that I started and launched my Airbnb business is the same week that my old company wanted to hire me back, but with less pay. So it was the same week. It's like, oh my God, what do I do? Like, this is like the pivotal road, two roads in the woods. What do I do? So I jumped. Like, for me to jump and put all of my chips into me was like a huge thing. And I'm still evolving through it. Yeah. And then I don't know how I'm doing, but I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to go into podcasting. And I'm hoping eventually this will help me get to where I need to go. By the way, guys, I just want to interrupt my own video here and let you know that if you can really help me out and subscribe, comment, because that really helps our algorithm and push to people that really needs to hear this.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm still going through it.
Yeah, I feel like it was a great move 5 years ago, and now I'm starting to reevaluate again. And I was just talking to my best girlfriend yesterday. I was like, I admire these people that say, that's making like six figures, and they're like, F this, I'm not happy, and I'm just gonna do my own thing. And those folks that can just decide that they're going to live in a different country, like, whoa, this is totally different culture. Like, how do you get up and just change your life? And it's something that is very daunting for me because of
because we need safety. We need
safety. We need safety. And so I'm just kind of, just looking out for those stories more, just so that I can hear, like what were the steps and what were the feelings that came behind it. And, just so that I can become a little more familiar with that type of thought, because it was just, it's the unimaginable for me. Like I've always been the breadwinner.
Yeah.
I've always been the one that had to hold the house down.
Yeah.
When I purchased my home, my parents lived in an apartment that I lived. Of course, I was there with them for 20 years. And when I graduated college, I was doing law of attraction without even knowing what that was back then. Like I had a little house in the middle.
So you had a mood board?
Yeah. Well, it was just a piece of paper. I put a little house, a little picture of a house in the middle. I put 5 lines because it was my parents and my other 2 siblings. Yeah. And I wrote, and silly me, I wish I would have kept it because I would have framed it so that I could have. But on it, it said, by the year 2000, we will live in our new home.
Wow.
And we moved into the house that I'm in on December 31st, 1999.
Wow.
So my God, talk about making the word flesh, that's exactly what it was. And didn't realize that's what I was doing. Yeah. Didn't realize, but it had a little magnet on the refrigerator. We saw it every day. And this, I think I had done like in 1997, because I graduated college in 96. I had my little job that was paying me, $22,000 a year. And just being in that mode, I was like, I lost that. I need to get back to that. And to me, that was my intuition that had kicked in, because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. So it's always inside of us. It's learning to bring that out.
It is. And like, technically we can manifest anything we want. And one of the things that I really implemented a lot in my life is like affirmations and mood board. So I, at work, it's my girlfriend sits next to me for so many years. And every year I would put up a mood board and print out things that I need to happen for that year. And she would just laugh, because like, she would look at my board and then I would tell her like she's like, Linda, at the end of the year, she will look at my mood board. She's like, everything that you wanted to happen happened. And I was like, listen, you need to start a mood board too. Like, whatever you want to happen, if you see it every single day, or you say it to yourself every single day, you're going to manifest it and attract it to you.
Right. You are.
So then just keep doing that. Put up a mood board, whatever it is that your next dreams and goals or whatever it is, it's going to happen to you, Dean.
Yes.
I mean, I think you need to write a book of all your stories.
Oh my God. Can I tell you, that was one of the conversations that came out of the girl group that we had during the pandemic. And I had even spoken to Sunrise's publicist, and and what I notice about myself is that I'll start something, I'll initiate it. And it's just like one of those things that sit in the back of the bookcase type of thing. So it's one of my things that I need to work on, to kind of seeing what I start to finish. Even if I don't like it, even if I don't feel that it's something that I want to do anymore, just finish it.
Yeah.
Just finish it. So
just finish it.
It's one of my things, putting my books.
I know. As you were talking, all I saw was like, I'm like Sunrise, where I'll talk to people and then something will click and I'm like, listen, you need to do that. And like whatever, something special, whatever gifts that they have, I'll see it as well. And I'm like, so as you're speaking, I was like, you need to write your book. Just like you said, like after your conversation with Sunrise, you started writing things down, a timeline. So I think we need to continue that. And I like to give myself deadlines. So I gave myself a deadline with Sunrise, and I love my birthdays. So my birthdays to me is, listen, I was born this day and there's a reason why I'm here. So I always like to, do something big for my birthday. So I gave myself a deadline with Sunrise on the podcast that I would do my coffee table book, finish it, launch it, throw a party, Art and Hustle style, on my birthday, March 31st. So you need to mark that on your calendar.
Yay!
Friday, March 31st, I'm going to throw a big
2023?
2023. So I got 3 months. 3 months.
No
deadline.
Impossibilities here. No impossibilities.
No, exactly. So whenever your birthday is, when's your birthday?
August 11th.
All right. So August 11th.
That's it. That's what we're doing.
That's what
we're doing, Linda.
That's what we're doing. August 11th.
Okay. I'm going to put it in.
Put it in August 11th.
August 11th. And so August 11th, then is supposed to be my launch for this book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Listen, I'm launching mine in 3 months. I haven't fully, it's in my walls. It's in my calendar of my phone. It's in my Google Docs. So so it's funny. Like even when I did my art show, I literally launched my art show in 1 week.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, that's what I mean. Like I'm crazy. I mean, you're a Leo and a Tiger. So I know you can do this. I know you can do this.
I have all this fire in me, girl.
Yeah, this is why we're meeting. This is why we're meeting. And I'm going to, light a fire under your ass. And
yes, please. I need you, Linda. I do.
We're going to do this. We're going to do this every week.
Okay. So I've just put in on August 11th that this launch is going to happen. And yours is March 31st. Yes.
Mine's March 31st.
Amen.
All right.
I'm here for it.
I love it.
Thank you, sis.
So much for joining me. I'm so excited. And we'll see you next Wednesday.
Absolutely. Have a good one, my dear.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Hey, but before we round out, let's let everybody know about our inspirational journal.
Okay.
So excited. It's a great holiday gift. So make sure you go grab one. The link will be at the bottom of the screen. And, don't just get one for yourself, get one for a loved one, and start 2023 like making big dreams, big goals, or even heal, because we like to call them our healing and inspirational journals.
Yes.
So
Thinking of your master plan, that was the first one we did. So everybody like, subscribe, comment below, and we're going to leave that link to our collab, so that we're so excited about. And then there's going to be mugs too that we're going to put out.
Yes. Grab your mugs. Grab your mugs. So next time you watch, they can drink out of their mug and they can write notes in their journal.
Exactly. I love it.
My guests to introduce themselves. So Linda, tell the good people who you are.
I am LindaLCheung. I am kind of a jack of all trades. I do a little bit of fashion design, graphic design. I'm a multimedia artist. I'm a single mom of 2 kids, divorced, and I'm, the founder and owner of Art and Hustle. And I've curated some art shows. Now I've gone into the podcasting world where I want to talk about the art of living. And I feel like every story will help and every story will heal. And that's how me and Sunrise got connected, where I saw you on Facebook and I was like, I love your energy. And, if you would be so kind to join me on my podcast. And this is how it's all evolved now. Now we do our weekly inspiring conversations. So I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I know, we're like cross-pollinating. Yay!
Yep. I mean, I love it because you have written your book and I was doing the podcast. And so since we connected, I was like, Sunrise, you got to do your podcast. I'm like, just do it. Just jump in. Right.
Yes. So for those who don't know, yes, I had this idea and it was stewing, and I may have recorded one thing during the pandemic. And then when I connected with Linda was like, just do it.
Do it.
Those are her exact words. She was like, just do it. She said, stop thinking about it. Stop overthinking it. She said, just press record and just do it. And so that first episode that everyone loves with Tenora from season 1, that would have never happened had it not been for my girl, Linda. So I'm so glad that she is on my side of the podcast to share her journey, mainly because everyone knows I do this show because I want people to feel comfortable in their relationship with a higher power. For me, I call it God. Whoever and whomever you are, I want people to feel connected to something bigger. And so I love having these conversations with people with different journeys. So I will start with my first question, which I love to ask my guests, Linda. When you hear the word divinity or divine, what comes to mind for you?
I want to feel like it's hope and it's purpose and it's spirituality. So I've always said, like, I never really wanted to call it just one name because I feel like all religion should be all encompassing. So whatever you want to call it, whatever someone believes in, you know, Buddhism or whatever, I feel like we're all trying to obtain the same thing, where we're all feeling, you know, where we want to be in touch with something, a spirituality, a divine, your gut instinct, so your intuition, whatever it is, I feel like that's what divinity is. It's all of us. It's all encompassing. So I feel like it's a little bit of everything. And it's also like our purpose and of our authenticity. So if we can all be more authentic with our purpose and our intentions and to be in a space of who we are, mind, body, and soul, if we can be connected, then we'll be able to be more authentic, sit here with you and to be who we are. So then there's less conflict around in the world, you know?
When were you, so I know your childhood. I know, you know, a lot of your upbringing. Do you ever recall at an early age being connected to something higher than yourself? And if so, what was it?
I feel like when I was younger, I always had this like innate hope. I always knew that there was something better for me. So with my upbringing, like it was very traumatic. I grew up in a very abusive, mentally, physically, sexually abusive home where there was like, it's very militant. It was like a prison. And it happened, it was like majority of my childhood from age 5 to like sophomore in high school, like that constant abuse was always there. So, but I always knew that there was hope. So I just grasped onto that. So I just knew that there was something out there that was better for me. And there was definitely a different purpose for me, because I'm so thankful still to this day where technically my dad tried to kill me at age like 5 years old, you know? So there's a purpose for me to be here. And I feel like my purpose is now more to talk on these podcasts and to tell my story. So someone else who's listening to it and who knew me in high school would never have known that, you know, oh my God, Linda went through such a traumatic childhood with all that abuse. And she came to school and just put a mask on and put this avatar on. Nobody would know that I was going through all of that stuff. So I want to be able to tell my story so other people would hear it and be like, well, if she can go through all of that, then I can go through whatever struggles I'm going through as well.
You know, just, you know, I always get chills when I hear something. I'm sure my listeners and viewers are like, their mouths are wide open. Like, what did she say? Like, how, oh my God, how, I know how, but like, what was the journey for you from 5 to now where you are to be able to open your mouth? Oh my God. And talk the way that you're talking now.
Finally getting back to me, you know, my art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So like to me, art isn't everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You know, you can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So art and hustle to me is the art of living and art of it and everything.
I hope that you cut that piece right there and make it your intro and your